okay, so the slides are going from English to Italian because I thought I completely, anyway, content is king anyway, so not the titles. So I titled this from Artisanal Shrek to Generative Shrek because I'm I, I moved to California 30 years ago to work for a company that then that following year became DreamWorks, and I started working on feature films like Z, that I think here was called Zeta la Formica, Ants, then Shrek, and then many others, Kung Fu Panda, Madagascar, How to Train Your Dragon, a lot. For 17 years at DreamWorks, and then I moved to become a startup, but we'll see that. So the reason is because the world is changing. The world of creating content is not the world that we had 30 years ago when we were making movies. Pixar on the other side of the bay was making Toy Story, and ILM were making Star Wars and all these other movies. The world is different, and the tools that the artists and the business models that are available are changing very rapidly, to the point that I had to change the presentation on a daily basis last week because there were new stuff to add. So let's see if this thing works. Does it work? Okay. So I decided to ask Gen AI to create some of the slides. So I don't use Gen AI tools on a daily basis in my job. So I struggle because I have a love and hate relationship with them. At the same time, my current job at Google is to create synthetic data to train some of these models. So I'm actually building the tools that kills my job. But that's what it is. So I asked her, like, can you kind of a picture Shrek as a contemporary president? Apparently, it has blonde hair. Okay, so who I am. I started many years ago in Verona when my father gave me this camera, and I started making cartoons. And I thought, great, I can actually make the cartoons that I watch on TV. And then in the early 80s, I stumbled on these computers. I told my father, can we set up a shop so that we sell these computers and I play in the back of the shop? And that's what magically did for me. And these were my first computers, my first tablet. And I start drawing with graph papers and numbers and basic learning basic stuff, coding and drawing with a computer. I joined a small company in Verona, a 2-man, 3-man company to make slides for doctors. There was no PowerPoint at the time, so we were making very expensive slides for doctors, TV opening titles for local TVs. And well, this is not a picture of me. This is the way I used to work with a 286 in 1986. Then I moved to a company. I moved to Milan. I moved to a company, a Canadian company that made the software that I was using. I started traveling the world, and I discovered that my future was probably not in Italy and somewhere else. So, in '94 I interviewed, and in '95 I got the visa, and I moved there, despite the fact that I only had high school. My dream of becoming an architect failed very quickly in Venice in the 80s because they didn't want me to touch a computer back then. So I said, okay, you don't need me then. I started making commercials and some of my in 3D, some of the cartoons that I grew up with. So it was an amazing experience in the first couple of months of me working there, working on something that was part of my early years. I worked on The Simpsons Treehouse of Terror. There was a November '95 episode, very famous, with the first time that Homer Simpson was in 3D. And in '96, DreamWorks, that was born in LA, partnered with our studio, and we became part of DreamWorks. And we worked on Ants, Zeta la Formica, and then on Shrek. one of the first and only time that I wore something that I rented something that looked like a fancy suit, but it was like a very cheap suit. But I went to LA to honor this guy on the right that wrote the muscle system for Shrek, because Shrek, despite being an ogre, was made of muscles and fat and jiggly things. So these are the three of us that were behind some of the technology at the time. And because we were at the early days of computer graphics, these are the guys that built in our department that brought to life some of these characters. And it's funny looking at this because half of us now are either at Apple or Google or Facebook and Meta, and the other half are doing something else. Only a few are still at DreamWorks. We're young and we were very diverse from engineering, more engineering artists and pure artists that were incredibly skilled as a sculptor and anatomy and stuff. I feel like we were really artisan in that time. We were like crafting. The software was not as incredible as it and powerful as it is today. But we were a band of 500 of us at the end, making the movie for 4 years, and we really, did something amazing for the time because nobody else was doing movies at the time except Pixar, a full-length movie, and every movie took 4 years to make. I also indulge in photography, something that is very common in my family, including my son that is over there. And not only my wife and I. So photography was important because when I picked up a camera, I discovered that I could tell stories with the camera, and so it gives me another opportunity to extend my explorations in visuals and telling stories and connect them with the storytelling that I experienced making movies for kids and for families at DreamWorks. So we start traveling with my wife before the kids were born, and taking pictures for nonprofits around the world, and at one point I even thought of dropping everything and becoming a documentary photographer, but luckily I gave up. And we created a startup, Curious Hat, with my wife and a colleague, Erwan. We built, and this is the pitch for investors in Italy in 2011, around Christmas when we looked for money. We made a lot of apps. Apple was extremely grateful. Each one of these apps were on the front of the store because we were trying something different. We wanted to bring the kids out in the open with these new devices. We didn't want them to sit on the table or on the sofa. But we didn't make any money because, like I said, despite the incredible mentoring from I fail as a startupper. But it was an incredible experience, and I want to do it again. And also informed me a lot when I started joining Google. I joined Google in 2014 for a project called Spotlight Stories, telling stories and non-linear stories, telling with devices like a phone or a VR headset. So telling this, there was a bunch of people from Pixar, DreamWorks, and Disney. Google will pay for the best directors and animators and studios to create stories on this medium. That is, stories were not linear. The way you watch the movie and the way you move through the story when you're wearing a headset decide how the story evolves. And so the story may have multiple paths. And so we're building the technology and incredibly beautiful videos. But they were done by hand by Glenn Keane, like at the bottom left, or with 3D or a mix of 2D and 3D. There was no generative AI at that point. It was again crafted, but by hand. We even won an Oscar, not an Oscar, an Emmy at that point for Pearl. That was an amazing movie. And then I joined a team, the VR team at Google called Daydream, in a small team of 2 engineers and 2 designers that we were trying to imagine what the world would be with these new devices, with the glasses, headset, and so on, 5 years ahead. So we're doing a hackathon every week, creating a project every week, and then showing them to the vice president and the leadership at Google to say, "This is what I saw," and I start calling myself a reverse archaeologist because I thought that I would go into the future and then come back and tell what I saw. So we're imagining every possible use cases. Unfortunately, this is my son that is in the back now. He's a lot older than that, but so like, what would be if I don't see your eyes, and can I see your eyes? This is way before the Vision Pro now that has the Apple Vision Pro that has your real eyes. This was just a phone strapped with, or we were playing in the car. So the game that he was playing was connected to the GPS reading from the phone. So if I was turning the car, the moon rover would turn, and if he turns his head, he would then shoot something. So those kind of experiments. How do I go to the next? Okay. Other experiments with storytelling and photos. This is a way to walk around the city and then see the photos that you took emerging from the walls around you. So you're not just walking and looking at photos in a traditional way, but they were actually part of the territory. So again, trying to see how we can connect emotions and photos and memories with the place where you live. Okay. For the last 4 or 5 years, I've been creating synthetic data to train the models that recognize the world around you for your phone, for your devices. So we had to recreate the world in a synthetic way to quickly unblock the development of these algorithms, so that the system understands what your hand looks like when you're doing a gesture, what your eyes are looking when you're wearing special glasses, or how you navigate to a room or to Google Maps. But now data, but I was still using a traditional technique, very similar to the way we were making movies. You know, the amount of images that we have to create to train a data set for a model for eye tracking or hand tracking, for example, is equivalent to making a movie. So every night, our computers creates the images that are equivalent of a movie. A very boring movie because it only has hands moving around and interacting with the object, or your eyes looking around, simulating every possible human being in proportions that are possible. But it was basically like making a movie. So it felt familiar for a lot of us doing this. And so when we were making Shrek, we were hundreds of people, and each one of us was an artisan in his own way. Some were more technical, some were skilled. But what is happening is that you spend every morning in what is called dailies, where the director, the animators, and the technical people gather together and look at the work that was done the day before. And we kind of hear the stories that the emotions the director wants to communicate. We try to translate them into technical terms, or maybe some animation and some motion and some colors and stuff. So it was a collective effort of a lot of different minds. But it was a group effort. There were hundreds of us in a room, in some of the dailies. And the work to make a movie is made of hundreds of different people, each one in different groups, and each one is providing a little bit of information to the next group. So the cinematographer decides how the shot is created, then the animators move the characters, then the lighter creates the lights and the materials and the look, and so on and so on. And there are like hundreds of people and dozens of departments. This is a very young me working on Shrek that I found, apparently. Enough. Okay, but today things are different. Today, the way I used to work for 39 years is changing. Sometimes I feel I feel I'm an old shoemaker that has spent all his life learning how to make these shoes, and he makes the most incredibly comfortable shoes. But next door there is this big factory that is creating thousands and thousands of shoes automatically with no sense of beauty and product. There's no soul behind that, because some of these tools feels new tools feels very 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 empty and very very they and they were designed in a different way. And so I feel like most of my days feels like this. Again, these are images created by the computer with, it's like it's a strange catch-22 here. So when it comes to Shrek, I said, okay, I said, well, let's imagine that I'm in that room with all the directors, and instead of being the director telling the art director what to do um, and how he wants the movie to look like, and the story emotions and story arc of the characters. Let's write a prompt like we do all these days to describe what I want, and let's see what the computer tells me that I should be inspired by. And so I prompted the Shrek and Fiona are dragging Lord Farquaad in the mud in a rainy forest, and I got these things that ranges. None of them are the actual look of Shrek and Fiona, because he has a vague idea what they look like, but sometimes they get a little too Pixar Disney-like, and sometimes he for a longest time he thought he didn't know what Lord Farquaad was, so he just put another Shrek into the pictures. It's like, hey, you want Shrek, I'm gonna put another one. And so now I became, and the same thing here, I said, like, I want an intimate dialogue. So I'm trying to imagine the situations that the director and the artist in a movie would have run into. The director would say, I want a scene that does this kind of things. And then the layout artist and the storyboard artist and the art director would kind of a sketch thing and then give a lot of different ideas and stuff. But now I can type things into a prompt and hope for the best. Um, in educating myself on these tools, I use something that is called Notebook LM that Google has. I took a bunch of links from that spoke about the generative AI, and I dropped it into these tools on the left, and I say, can you tell me what's going on here? And the system has created a 12 minutes podcast between two people that talk among themselves and describe what they learn from the system. And then it gives me an ability to create notes, a quiz, a recap of the situation. So that's a great tool for the new generation that needs to study a new subject in school and stuff, because you drop a bunch of references and the system can create more appealing materials than reading a boring paper. But if 30 years ago I would deal with a 3D model that needs to move, then coloring the pixel that takes 8 hours to make an image, and simulating mud with days and days of running computers to run these things, now you, with a simple prompt and writing some text in a prompt, you can get something like this that would have taken 6 months, a multiple number of people to do. And so on one side you think, oh God, it's like what's going on? Now my job is gone. And the other, you realize that the path that you took to create the image after many weeks and many multiple people, and the tools and the way you use the tools and the skills that you use to do that cannot be easily replaced by a little haiku that describe what you want in the image. You need a lot more control. So it's but things are changing. If before we were animating by creating the skeleton inside your doll, inside the character, and giving it to the animator that would animate, and then the lighters that creates the materials and the textures and simulate the clothing and stuff. Nowadays, you can create a very very simple things like the one on the top. You can even take a bottle in a ball and moving around and say, hey, computer, can you pretend that the bottle is actually Fiona? And the system is going to use the information that he gathers from the motion of the bottle and in space, and then turning into Fiona. So animation and the creation of the content is changing radically. And so suddenly we find ourselves that we learn how to make those shoes, but now the shoes are made in a completely different way. And while these tools are extremely rough these days, like someone else said, it cannot be any worse than this. It's going to get better, and it's only going to get better and faster and more powerful. So you see, I mean, the guy is animating the character on the bottom left, but the output is the image on the right. That is extremely realistic. The hairs are moving not the way I would like to, but that opens another thing that I'm going to say later. And same thing here. The image on the right is an image completely generated by the computer. There is no models. There is nothing of the work that I've done, that we have done to do that. And the control is just something that he holds in his hand to turn the face around. And you can change the style, and hey, he's going to make another style. So il buono e brutto, the possible, there are good things and bad things, and so I'm having good days and bad days about these things. So there are good days. There are tools that takes what we used to do and we still do, like drawing a character and turning it into the 3D versions of that, so that you still have the manual input of the user, the artist that knows that a curve or brush strokes has to be in a particular way. So we still have that. So those are good examples. This example is like, well, I need to create the image on the right, but I suck at drawing or painting, but I can just put together a very simple representation on the left of object where I want a dog and a sofa, and the system is gonna then use that to constrain the generation with my text. I can take a place that I just took a bunch of photos, and I can turn it into a set where I can go around, even if I'm not there anymore, and I can place all my characters in that. There's an incredible amount of new movies and shorts and stories that are being told with these new tools. And so that, in a way, is the good things. There are a bunch of talents and creative talents that are creating content with these new tools, and they are kind of changing completely the way these things are made. This is one example of a video. But the way this is done is actually, trying to mimic. So you see, you start from the storyboard like we used to do, but then there is an artist that has a style, and they wanted to capture that style. So they told the computer to follow that style. And because the computer can then generate a lot of variations from inspired by that style, you have a consistent amount of information that you can put into your story. Called it Luca. It allowed us to create more dynamic camera moves and return to the same environment. And so on. I'm going to stop here. The idea is that these guys are knowledgeable. They know how movies were done before and how content was created before. And they say, first of all, can I optimize the process? Can I, instead of being 600 people to do this, can 5 people do this? And can I can I give superpower to each one of the 5 members of the team, and then while without losing control, while retaining the control of the visuals that I want, the story that I want, but so instead of 600 people, 500 people, now you have 5 superhero, superpower people. That is a great thing. in a way, but it also comes with a price. This is Roblox. Is one of the software that my son plays once in a while. Is a this word, and actually like the office is 500 meters from my house, and now kids can type I want a gold helicopter in my game, and the system creates that. There is no publisher that has to go and make that thing. That thing is that content is their content, is whatever they want, and every player has a different content. And if you're playing with someone else, like my son does, you're sharing that your vision with everybody else. There is no, you don't have to be an artist, you don't have to be a modeler or knowledgeable of expensive tools. I'm gonna keep jumping because these are every day there is something new. So the trend of the day of the week last week was that OpenAI allow user to say, can you show me this image, but in a style of a director, this very famous Japanese director, Hayao Miyazaki. And so people just like abuse of the system, and then did all sorts of things with that. Smarter people like Sterling on the bottom said the other way around. Can you pretend that the style of Miyazaki is interpreted by a photographer, by Dorothea Lange? And so he has these images at the bottom. They are shot like a photography from Dorothea Lange, but they were representing characters in a movie of Miyazaki. The problem is that nobody gave permission to copy and train on the movies of Miyazaki. And Miyazaki is not, and Studio Ghibli are not very happy about that. And likewise, if one of the most famous studio and directors in the world is not happy, you can imagine that likewise every single image that was posted on every portfolio of an artist that was posted is a potential source of this data. So when someone that has never taken a pencil in his hand or has never studied art or design or anything, just sits in front of a prompt and type, can you make a photo in the style of this cartoon? You bypass a lot you bypass all my last 40 years. There's this other thing that is going on these days. It's called vibe coding. Vibe coding means like you sit in front of a computer. You are not a coder. You are not a programmer, but you just describe to the computer what you want, and the computer starts coming up with pieces and making the stuff for you. That could be is applied to coding, but it can be applied to anything else, or making art or making a movie, anything. And the idea is that like everybody can do it. And so when it doesn't work, it feels like you're a pianist that is trying to catch up with the notes that are coming and falling from the sky. Like in a video game, so, you're playing these video games where you're pretending that you're playing, but you're actually just like following the light notes that are coming up. And you're not a pianist after that. You're not ready to go on tour. You're just someone that barely made it, that was able to follow some prompt. But when it works, it's like having a jazz pianist and a jazz singer interacting for the first time and creating something unique that never existed before. But these two people are incredibly good at their own skills. They know exactly what to do. They're incredibly talented, and so that moment is more than the sum of the two of them. And so like everything else, these kind of tools can have a good side and a bad side. And so you become this kind of a prompt whisperer, like someone that instead of actually sitting in front of a white piece of paper and drawing or writing a novel or something, you just like describe what you want, and then the tools are getting better and better to try to understand that. And similar things like this. I want to create this scene, and before you would spend a lot of time to create the scene. Now you describe it, and the system actually goes into your software and builds that for you. So you're going to end up with new type of relationship with these tools from a user. And I also can imagine the customer that now, before he was yelling at you in front when you're working and you're trying to use the tools they use the most, and now you have to, you still get yelled at, but now you have to type something in a computer. The problem that I also see with this infinite choices after a prompt, and then the software gives you hundreds of different choices, is that you lose agency. You lose the ability to guide your exploration. And you just like go down, you get 5 different options, and you say, I'm going to go with that. And no reasoning why that thing was better. And so now you go down a path, and that exploration could be incredibly beautiful, but also most of the time it's just like you just pick one, and you cannot explain why. You don't have an artistic judgment of why this is better than the other. The biggest problem for me is the relationship that we have with quality content. These days, it's not about the tools, it's about how we are consuming things. Years ago, we were going to a movie theater, then we start watching TV, then we start watching streaming, and now we are watching shorter and shorter content. And we lost the ability to judge what is good and what is bad, I feel. And so now, while these tools cannot replace making a movie today, they can easily replace making the 15 seconds TikTok or YouTube short that my son and my daughter consumes, and myself too consumes on a daily basis. And so you now can imagine that 99.9% of the content is going to be self-generated, because now suddenly you have computers feeding themselves and say, can you, like, you need to type a prompt today, and now we are using ChatGPT or Gemini to say, can you write a bigger prompt for me, because I'm tired, I'm not good at that. So you have this kind of a self loop that is incredible. So another example that I do often is that 15 years ago, we didn't have on our phone a camera. And we had disposable cameras. We have medium format SLR, but film cameras, and there were amazing photographers. Now there are billions of these things with us, and statistically, I don't see a lot more great photographers around. So we were taking pictures of our kale salad 15 years ago, and now we have still a lot of people that now takes a lot of photos of salads, and the quality of the content is what it is for a lot of content. And the more crap there is, the harder it is for the good content to emerge. And also we are responsible as a big tech companies to create the environment where this bad content is distributed and fed to the new generations. So what I'm hoping that is not going to happen is that we are not going to go toward a tool that replaces the job of a lot of people and the complexity of coming up with telling a story and creating content. I had a fight with one of our main engineer, because he said, I'm dying to make a button that says make a movie, and I almost strangle him because I said, no, this is not what I want. Like I want tools that gives me even more power, that understand that I spend 10,000 hours to become who I am, and I want a partner that can help me get better, but not takes my work away. So I don't want the tool to be the tool for the casalinga di Voghera, because I hope that we are not the company that makes the tool for the casalinga. I asked the system to create an image of the tombstone, because the casalinga di Voghera is someone that existed when I was a kid. So I'm assuming that she's dead now, and so she never understood what Gen AI is. So I hope that we are not making tools driven by this idea that we need to kind of make them for everybody and then suddenly empower everybody to become someone without spending any effort and any energy. You need to understand. And I hope that we invest as much money into educating about what storytelling is, so we don't forget, and as much money as we invest in making these buttons producing amazing images. One other thing, I asked a bunch of my friends that are working more deep into this, and one other thing that they said is these tools are gonna destroy the low-level junior simple jobs, because if you need an image for a website or photos for your advertising, you're not going to call a photographer or a designer, or you're not going to empower a junior artist to become to grow up and learn something, because you're going to just be happy with whatever this thing is going to spit out. And so we're going to lose a whole generation that started small as a junior and work next to the masters and learn the craft and got very good, and then the cycle continued. Now you empowering the one that understand and they can master these tools and they can understand how to create something different. But the vast majority of the average content that just goes in front of your face for a fraction of a second is most likely going to be generated by automatically by these systems. So I don't have like a solution or like, I don't know. I mean, there are days in where I say, okay, I had my run, I had a good run. After 40 years, that's fine. It's time to be the shoemaker in the corner that yells to the factory and says, but I'm afraid of where the new generation and how what do I tell my son or the other kids that are starting, and how they're gonna cope with these tools, because the path cannot be the path that I took 30 and 40 years ago. So I hope, and I see some good signs, and even inside my company, in my company, the company I work for, that we are trying to be mindful when we are building these tools, and trying to build them for with the artist in mind, if they're artistic tools, or with the end user in mind, and not just like a replacement, a flat replacement for someone's life. But at the same time, there are a lot of big business decisions going on, a lot of money, and so sometimes the desire of an artist or an engineer get trampled very quickly. So I think the last thing is that I said, can you put the Shrek inside the Piazza Garibaldi? And I don't even know if this is Piazza Garibaldi. But, that's what he thought. That's what Bio thought it was. So I don't have a final word. I just have a lot of confused thought, and so that's it.